I'm calling to order the regular session meeting of the Board of Commissioners of the City of Tarpon Springs on Tuesday, March 24th, 2020 at 6:30 p.m. Good evening, everyone. In order to prevent spreading the coronavirus, as you can see, the auditorium has been set up based on the restrictions placed by the government DeSantis and the recommendations of the CDC. Appreciate your understanding and your cooperation. We received a memo from Commissioner Sieber that she will not be able to attend in this meeting tonight. I need a motion if we're going to excuse her.
Motion to excuse.
Roll call.
Commissioner Donovan?
Yes.
Commissioner Carr?
No.
Vice Mayor Terapany?
Yes.
Mayor LaHousas?
No. The reason why I voted no is because we all have the responsibility to be here, attending the meetings, regardless if it's good times or bad times, at difficult times like it is tonight. Thank you. Roll call.
Mayor LaHousas?
Here.
Vice Mayor Terapany?
Here.
Commissioner Sieber is not here. Commissioner Carr?
Here.
Commissioner Donovan?
Here.
Tonight's invocation will be given by City Attorney Tom Trask. If you please stand and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Humbly before you in a time where we are concerned about the health of our families, our friends, and the residents of the city of Tarpon Springs. Those suffering and those who have died from the coronavirus burdens our hearts. We pray that you will comfort the families of those who are ill and welcome those who have died into your heavenly kingdom. We are hopeful that your grace and love will be with those who have suffered and with those present here today who share in their pain and loss. This we pray. Amen.
Thank you. Pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I have a couple announcements to make. Announcement number one is the application number 18-51 for the future land use map amendment, and the application number 18-52 preliminary plan development rezoning. Both applications are for the North Lake Estates and will not be heard tonight due to the error in the legal advertising. Will be advertised again and it will be heard in a later day. Also, I'd like to remind to everyone that we are in a pandemic coronavirus situation, and I would like to ask everyone, please make your comments and questions to be short, precise, and to the point. We don't want to stay here any longer than we have to. Let's be safe so we can go home. Thank you. We received an email from Mr. Jason Dunkel. He is the president and CEO of the Advent Health North Pinellas, our hospital here in Tarpon Springs. He has a message that he likes to relay to everyone in Tarpon Springs, and I'd like to ask Mrs. Jacobs to read it for the public here and at home, and also we have it on the record.
This is dated March 23rd of 2020. To the City of Tarpon Springs, as the public concern grows over the coronavirus, COVID-19, we want to assure you that the well-being of our patients, team members, their families, and our community is our top priority. We also want to provide you with an update on how we will be working to keep you and our patients safe. Our executive and clinical leaders are meeting regularly on preparedness, prevention, and protocols, and are proactively taking the following steps at all locations: holding daily leadership meetings to ensure we have capacity, supplies, equipment, and staffing to handle a potential surge of coronavirus patients in our facilities, ensuring physicians and clinical teams follow the latest guidelines from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and Florida Department of Health, screening all patients at entry points in our facilities, following a no visitor policy at all facilities with certain exceptions, canceling elective surgeries per the order of Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. You may have noticed tents at our hospital and at our Palm Harbor Emergency Department, which is part of our preparedness efforts to serve the community. We have created several resources to assist you with gathering accurate and up-to-date information on COVID-19. You can call our COVID-19 hotline at 877-VIRUS-HQ. You can visit our coronavirus website at coronavirusresourcehub.com, and you can receive virtual care by downloading our Advent Health app through the Apple App Store or Google Play. Advent Health is ready, prepared, and we are here for our community. Sincerely, Jason Dunkel, President, CEO, Advent Health North Pinellas, and Advent Health Palm Harbor ER.
Thank you. Also like to say that we stayed in contact, very close contact with Mr. Jason Dunkel, and talking about the preparedness of our hospital, so we feel very comfortable with the work that they do. We're very grateful for that. Mr. Licouris, before I go to the public comments, do you have something that you would like to share with us?
The only thing I'd like to share is, as I sent you in an email today, we have offered to the hospital, since we have closed the golf course, we had offered them to, in their future plans, if things get worse and there's need for more area right off campus, the use of that right now, we allow them for some parking of staff, extra staff they have in to come over there, but we have offered that to put into their future plans. If they do need an auxiliary facility, we'd be available to do that right across the street from them.
Thank you. We are now going to the public comments on the items that will not be discussed today. If anyone has any comments, please come forward, state your name and your address for the record. You begin in 4 minutes.
Good evening. Peter Delax, 514 Ashland Avenue. These are all tense times for everybody, and I would like to say at this point, it's also a uniting factor. I've seen I stay at my mom's a lot, and I've seen where some of the neighbors are reaching out and helping each other. But I want to go one step further. We've all been to the grocery store, CVS, the Dollar General, the Walmart. I would say, reach out and say a thank you to these people who are there to help us stay supplied. Walgreens today to get some milk, and as I was leaving, the guy from Borden's was there, and he was bringing stuff in and out from his truck. And I said, hey, thank you for being there for us. And he said, hey, no problem, man. There was a story today on one of the news networks about the truck drivers hauling back and forth, that the government has released the restrictions to the time limits, but some companies are still requiring their drivers to work that, to do what they can. And they're having hard times along the way finding places to stop and eat. So there are a lot of people affected, but there are a lot of people out there putting their efforts forth to make sure that we can still somewhat lead a life that we have led before. I would also like to thank our police officers and our firefighters, because they're on the front lines every day. They don't know who they're walking up to and what they have. So I would greatly like to make sure that they're well taken care of and what supplies that can be available for them. And I would just ask that we all say prayers, not only for ourselves and our loved ones, but those who have already been affected and may be affected soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? I hear none. We are now going to the consent agenda.
Excuse me, Mayor. We do have one more email.
Oh, you do? Yes, please.
There's a public comment that was sent in, and it is from Mr. Panayotis Koulias 595 Peninsula Avenue, Tarpon Springs, and it's dated March 23, 2020. Dear citizens of Tarpon Springs, I have forgone the right to appear in person out of respect to my fellow Tarponites during this COVID-19 pandemic. The coronavirus is a horrible pandemic. We also have other horrible pandemics in Tarpon Springs that have been going on for decades. At the last Board of Commissioners meeting, I was accused of failing to provide facts. I promise you, Tarpon Springs, you will get nothing but facts today. A, facts. Regarding our unqualified city manager, Mark Licouris, I requested his educational college transcripts from the city of Tarpon Springs. On March 11, 2020, Crystal Coley of the city clerk's office sent me an email with the following response. We do not have any transcripts for Mr. Licouris. Once again, the city failed to bother to even check on his so-called educational credentials before he was hired as the police chief or for his current lush position of city manager. I promise you I will investigate who the city mayor and commissioners were at the 2 times of hiring the unqualified Mark Licouris. The city has failed its citizens once again by being complacent and trusting every word of every person. We have created a yes man mentality with no accountability and no checks and balances. B, facts. I have been asking for the past 6 weeks, which equates to 3 board meetings, for the required immediate city manager review that this board has turned a blind eye to for the past 12 years. As our city commissioners, the yes men, I am talking about, or will they admit their shortcomings and correct this review failure travesty? C, facts. Mark Licouris entered the Drop Pension Benefit Program on June 30th, 2005, receiving a whopping $6,651.14 per month, our hard-earned tax-paying dollars. Mark then exited the Drop Pension Benefit Program on February 26, 2009, and started receiving his normal retiree pension, then $6,651.14. From 2005 until 2009, he earned a whooping $345,859.28. On October 1st, 2010, Mark received a 2.1% cost of living increase, raise his monthly benefits to $6,790.81 through October 1, 2015, another whooping $407,448.60. On October 1, 2015, it went up another 2.1%, $66.58, shy of $7,000 every month in Licouris's pocket. From October 1, 2015 through March 2020, he will have collected yet again another head-scratching $360,570.84. D, facts. Licouris has collected $1,113,845.72 in pension benefits while also collecting his city manager checks. E, facts. Licouris currently makes $130,622.13 as our city manager and is also double dipping his pension from the same hardworking Tarpon taxpayers. F, facts. In 2014, our city mismanager, Mark Licouris, cost the Tarpon taxpayers nearly $350,000 in engineering plans and architectural plans for a sponge dock, boardwalk, and amphitheater. This project stalled because city mismanager Mark Licouris failed to do his due diligence with the Army Corps of Engineers, who would never approve the plans as it would make the river too narrow to navigate large vessels. G, facts. Our stubborn city manager Licouris refused to permit the city. Mr. Mayor, the time is up, and this will be part of the rest will be part of the record.
Thank you. Do we have any other emails that we need to read?
I'm sorry?
Do we have any other emails?
That is all.
Okay, thank you. I wasn't going to say anything about that, but we respect everybody's right to speak. This is an emergency situation that we have here tonight, and this is not only in Tarpon Springs, but it's everywhere in the world. I don't think it's necessary to listen to anybody's family problems right now, so we need to move on and be more constructive. Thank you. And now we go into the consent agenda. Number 1 is the minutes. A, February 25th, 2020, regular session. B is March 10, 2020, regular session. C is March 12, 2020 emergency session as corrected. Number 2 is the attorney fees. A, Trask and Dynal, invoice March 6, 2020. B is Johnson & Johnson, invoice 5871, 5872, and 5873. Number 3 is the word file 200081 NJL, single source purchase of Sentry, Fauch, DeGate original equipment, manufacturer parts and services. Number 4 is to renewed file number 190105 CJL, sodium hydroxide through the city of Boynton Beach, bid number 0152821-19 TT. Number 5 is the maintenance, repair, and operation supplies and related services. A, ratified and increased file number 160054, CCM through National Indian Governmental Purchasing Alliance, contract number R 142104. B is the award file number 200087, CAM through Omniat Partners, contract number R 192006. 6 is to ratify an increase to file number 200043 CJJ utilizing Sourcewell contract number 120716 NAF vehicles, cars, vans, SUVs, and light trucks with related equipment, accessories, and services for purchase of vehicles. Number 7 is to renew files 180027 CRS, police equipment, surveillance, IT supplies, and related items through Purchasing Cooperative of America contract number RFP 3-140-16. And the last one, number 8, is the award file number 200093 and JL, single source purchase of corrosion inhibitor. Are there any items that you'd like to pull? I hear none. Are there any commission comments? Are there any public comments on these items?
Peter Lax, 514 Ashland Avenue, item 6, please. Couple of issues with regards to this. I know it's only an increase in the file, but when this was originally brought up on December 3rd, I didn't have an opportunity to speak out. And what I would like to say at this point is what I would have liked to have said then. We've been trying to pride ourselves as an environmentally conscious city. We're an Arbor Day tree city. We've got a sustainability committee. We've put in solar panels out by the reverse osmosis. Yet, it appears every time we go to buy vehicles, we're not buying energy efficient vehicles. And what I would like to point out, I know for the meters and the sanitation and quite possibly the fire department and their things. But I do have an issue where every time it seems like anymore we're buying police vehicles, they're all Tahoes, Silverados. And I would like to point you to, and those are all gas guzzlers. And I know gas is cheap, but it's still contra to what we're trying to do here in Tarpon Springs. Also, in addition, there are 2 Nissan Altimas being purchased, and I'm not sure exactly how those will be worked in. It says here they'll be used for detectives and such of that nature, but my concern on the last page of the backup, it says the police department will be purchasing a new 2020 Chevy Silverado 2500 pickup truck marked for code enforcement. Now, I'm not sure why code enforcement needs a pickup truck and why they couldn't be using an Altima or some other thing. They're not picking up and they're not hauling stuff, they're just going around and doing inspections. And secondly, I will come back to a previous point I made earlier, that when I read the Attorney General's position paper with regard to code enforcement and law enforcement. Yes, technically, a code enforcement officer can be a law enforcement officer. However, when they are serving in the capacity as a code enforcement officer, they are not to be carrying a gun in a marked vehicle and in a uniform. I don't know why we're getting the marked truck for the code enforcement, where on the previous page in the last paragraph, the police department purchasing a 2020 Silverado 2500 pickup truck unmarked for detective traffic homicide use. Now again, I'm not sure why we need a pickup truck versus a Suburban or Silverado, but I would like to see us at some point look at our fleet purchases to see if we can't become more environmentally friendly and in the long run do best for our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other public records? Any public comments on that? Ms. Jacobs, do we have any emails?
We have none.
None, thank you. The chair will entertain a motion.
Move approval.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Ben?
Yes.
Commissioner Carr?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Terapany?
Yes.
Mayor LaHousas?
Yes, thank you. We now go into the item number 9. Is the award bid number 200079BJJ, the West Court Street Improvements. Staff report.
Good evening, I'm Bob Robertson, Project Administration Department Director. For this item, we're requesting the board's approval to award a construction contract with Keystone Excavators Incorporated for the West Court Street Improvements Project. Keystone provided the low bid in the amount of $679,320. This includes a $5,800 additive alternate bid item for crosswalk upgrades that would use clay brick instead of faux brick patterned pavement. Overall, the project includes a new roadway, curbs, driveways, sidewalks, water and sewer infrastructure, decorative lighting, roadway and parking striping, and the crosswalks I just mentioned. The project also includes 6 landscape islands for the planting of 3 Sylvester date palms and 3 buttonwood trees. Funding is provided from multiple sources, including a capital project fund, local option sales tax, water impact fund, and sewer impact fund. And with that, I will stop for questions, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. First, I want to thank you and congratulate you for doing an excellent job preparing those projects for us.
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to see this project to be completed to provide additional parking to the downtown customers. And I'm also glad that we're going to replace the sewer lines and the water lines with the larger pipes so we can have a better quality water and also better flow. Question that I have is, the flooding, as you know, that we're addressing flooding throughout the city. And on this particular street, we're not going to have any flooded pipes going in there. How can you explain that, something that we've been working so hard trying to get it done?
Yeah, on this particular street, there's plenty of elevation drop. Flooding is not an issue on this street. It drains from the east to the west, and there is stormwater infrastructure on Banana Street to capture the flow from the street. Our engineer did analyze it and didn't see a need to add additional cost of stormwater infrastructure in this particular project.
Thank you. My next question is regards to the funding, and I know Ron is out in the audience. If I can ask him a question. This project will be funded by 4 different funds. The 13% from the capital project, 73% from the local option sales, 7% from the sewer impact, and 7% from the water. What kind of a formula do we use? How do we come up with those percentages?
Well, I'm Ron Herring, Finance Director. Good evening, everybody. When we got with Bob, and we found out what portion of the water and sewer were new water lines, so that's how we allocated the water and sewer portion to the impact funds, between the water impact and the sewer impact fund. The other ones, we used a capital project fund, about $83,000 for that, and then the balance, we had some money already budgeted for Court Street in the penny fund. So I'm not sure if that answers your question there, but like I say, the water and sewer impact funds and the capital project fund, which is only for transportation-related projects, and like say the balance to the penny fund.
Again, my question is why the sewer and the water fund, that's, it's very, very healthy funds. Why we're not taking more away from that, not using the penny for Pinellas that can be utilized for
Oh,
other-
you're talking about, could you use more from the water? No, when Bob had the cost, this was when the engineer did the cost, this was a portion for those new water lines. This is a cost of it. So we don't want to do any more than what we are allowed to for the new capital growth.
I got you. Thank you. Commissioner Carr.
Thanks, Mayor. Bob, thank you for coming back with the alternative as well, including bricks in the crosswalk. I think it's a nice touch in the historic district from our conversations. Just a quick question about the Buttonwoods. I would make a suggestion if we're looking at dwarf trees of some sort, to looking at a weeping yaupon or an upright yaupon holly. Buttonwoods freeze. These other ones don't freeze. They're native also to the area, so they won't need much water once established. So instead of a buttonwood tree, I would say, that was news to me. I didn't see that. I may have missed that in the backup, but if we're using some type of dwarf tree, I would recommend one of those two as an alternative. That's all.
Vice Mayor Terrapini.
Thank you, Mayor. Bob, thanks for your hard work on this project and following up from years past when Gary Sherman was originally assigned the task. I think you've ran with the project well and designed a nice project with feedback from all of the commission as a whole and individually. So I think you've done a nice project. I am thankful for it. I think that in this particular case, the city with our public initiative is already kind of catching up to the growth that's happening on that portion of Court Street. So I think that it'll be a positive thing from a parking perspective and also a redevelopment perspective. A lot of new businesses are opening up on Court Street and are more than likely looking forward to this improvement. I'll say from a funding standpoint, I'm appreciative of the backup and how staff went about that. I definitely think that, as we all talk about trying to save our penny for Pinellas money for projects, I think that you went about it in the right way regarding some of the other funding options for the water and sewer lines and transportation impact fund, et cetera. So I'm appreciative of that. I would definitely defer to Commissioner Carr on landscape-related items for the most part. So I'm good with his recommendations, and I look forward to getting this project underway. Thank you.
Commissioner Donovan.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, there were two main concerns from citizens and just some input that I got back from the last time we discussed this, and it was the brick road versus the asphalt road cost and the trees and the shade. So I actually got with you, and I appreciate all your help on it, to find out how much more it would be to put in a brick road. And the difference at the time was about $214,000. So if we wanted to put in a brick road instead of this plan, it'd be an extra $214,000. Is that still the case? Are those numbers still accurate?
Yes, I believe they are.
Okay. And then as far as the tree status goes, again, I know we talked about this earlier, but just to clarify, so part of the street is going to have, is it Sylvester's? And then part of the street is going to have buttonwood trees. Again, before any of the comments, that was the plan at least, right? It'd be half and half.
Right, and the reason for that is on the north side of Court Street, we have parallel parking, and so the landscape islands are narrower. And on the south side, we have angled parking, so the landscape islands are wider. The Sylvester date palm requires a lot of bracing, and to have the space to put in the Sylvester date palms, we needed the larger landscape islands. So those could only go on the south side. So we had to come up with an alternative for the north side that would fit into a smaller footprint without impacting things, including large bracing that would go into the sidewalk and create trip hazards and all that kind of thing.
Okay.
So we came up with buttonwoods, but if there's an alternative selection that will fit in that space, I would need to check that with the arborist. But we could go with an alternative.
Okay. So the palms can't be the whole street, right? But the alternative, or not the alternative, but the buttonwoods could be the whole street?
Correct.
Okay. Is that something we want to look for, just some consistency? To me, just looking at a street, it'd be kind of weird to see half of it be palm tree, palm tree, palm tree, and then separated from the other half is buttonwood, buttonwood, buttonwood. Do we care about that from the board perspective, or do you guys want the palm trees? Do you want it to all be a uniform tree, or?
Is there no way to do all palm trees, Bob?
I think it would have to be a different type of palm that didn't require the large bracing But from what I've learned from speaking with our arborists is that the footprint we have on those islands isn't really supportive or conducive for this particular type of palm. I'd have to investigate if other ones can do it. I doubt it, because the same reason is it doesn't have a lateral root structure. It's got a vertical root structure with that bulb. So it requires a lot of bracing to hold it during that critical establishment period. So I can look into it, but I don't think we're going to be able to do palms on the northern islands.
I mean, surely the landscaping portion is relatively small as it relates to this project, right?
Yes.
So I'm good with approving it and circling back to some of the landscaping, Commissioner, if you're good with that.
Yeah, we'll have another opportunity to talk about landscaping options, right?
You're approving the project as bid. So if we're going to change that, then I'll have to do a change order to the contract. That's not a big deal. It's just something that I'll need to process through, and I would need some kind of consensus from the board on that. Mark, if you want to speak to that.
Can I just make a comment real quick, Mayor? Having them on different sides of the street isn't a terrible design aspect. I mean, there's still some type of continuity. If you have all palm trees on the south side and all buttonwoods is what's been proposed, but I would suggest a weeping yaupon would look better and would last better with the freezes. You still have some continuity on one side of the road versus the other side, so it's not uncommon to see something like that in a design standpoint and other roadways. So I don't think it's really going to throw the design off of the road myself from my experience.
I'm good with that.
I'm okay the way it is.
I'm okay with that, yeah. I think ideally, you know, I know there was a lot of concern about making it a brick street, and I think in an ideal world, we could bring it back to that, because it's not a brick street now, but I just don't think it's worth over $200,000 to make that change. So I'm good with it as is.
And I think I hear a consensus for Commissioner Carr, what he said about the trees on the other side, so I think I've heard.
Leave it the way it is. Thank you.
Excuse me, you said leave it the way it is.
Yes.
That's not what Commissioner Carr said.
Just in relation to the palms on one side and the
Palms
weeping
on the other.
yaupons on the other side.
Okay. Thank you.
Are there any public comments on this item?
Vaticiotis, 538 West Cedar Street. I have a couple of questions. One, the carryover into this project from 2019 was about $150,000, if I remember right. Ron, you and I had a brief conversation. I know I'm directing my comments to you, Mayor. I just want to make sure that no other projects are going to be impacted, making up the difference between 150 and I think it would be the 500,000, which would be the penny fund that we're talking about. At that time, Ron assured me that there would not be an impact and that there was some extra penny money for that, but I want to make sure that that's the case. Secondly, the completion days of 240 days is crazy. I mean, that's a long time to have this disruption downtown. And I'd like to know whether those 240 days was something that we specified in the RFP, or was that in the response from the low bidder? And if that was the response from the low bidder, what were the completion dates for the other bidders? Just sometimes money is worth the time. So I think that's an excellent piece of information that I think needs to be presented to you this evening. Also, Mayor, getting back to your question concerning the drainage, what the Court Street's going to wind up with is something different than what you've got right now. Right now, you largely rely on sheet flow, but you're going to have 6 landscape islands that are going to be obstructions to preventing some of that sheet flow. And there could be some damming up in the front of those islands. I don't know, I haven't seen the plans. I understand the plans weren't given to you. I don't know if there's drains between the sidewalk and the landscape area and the landscape island to provide a relief for that drainage. But typically, if you don't do it right, you're going to have water backing up into the driveways, which I know that's not what you want. And so what I would ask that the commission request that a letter of certification from the engineer of record be given to you that the drainage will not be a problem as I had just described it to you with the landscape islands, which is something different than what we've got right now. Also, the other question was the lighting. I know there's just it's out there in the backup that ornamental lighting, but I'd like to confirm that it's going to match what we've got right now, or whether you had decided that it's going to be something different. I don't quite remember that detail, but I'd like to get some clarification on that as well. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments on this item? Ms. Jacobs, do we have any emails on this item?
We have no emails.
Thank you. That's back to us. Any commission comments, questions? If not, I will entertain a motion.
Move approval.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Donovan?
Yes.
Commissioner Carr?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Terapany?
Yes.
Mayor LaHousas?
Yes, thank you. Item number 10 is the extension of lease of spoil site for Anklo River dredging project we are been trying for a long time.
Yes, sir. Bob Robertson, Project Administration Department Director. For this item, we're requesting the board's approval to amend an existing lease agreement with Anklo Properties LLC to extend the expiration date of the existing lease by 12 months. This would amend the expiration date from January 1, 2021 to January 1, 2022. As you know, the city is the local sponsor of the Anklo River Dredge project, and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers requires the city to have a site secured for storage and dewatering of the dredge sediments. This site must be secured for a certain period of time to ensure that all project activities are completed and the site can be restored after the dredge is complete. While we don't really think that the project is going to go nearly this long, the Army Corps is making this request to ensure that there's plenty of time available should the project face delays, especially in the light of a global pandemic. The original lease agreement had a 6-month extension clause which has been removed in lieu of this proposed 12-month extension. All other lease terms remain unchanged from the original lease agreement. This amendment agreement was prepared by the City Attorney's Office and reviewed by city staff with the property owner. And I'll stop there for questions.
Thank you. We have no option. We must satisfy the Army Corps of Engineers. But I will ask you the question that everybody wants to know in Tarpon Springs, when the dredging will start.
Yeah, we're still on track for a summer start, a late summer start. I don't have a new update yet from the Corps. That was the update as of a month and a half ago. A lot of things have changed in a month and a half. So as soon as I do get an update, I will share that with the board.
Thank you. Any commission comments? Are there any public comments on this item? Here none. Ms. Jacobs, any emails?
There's no emails.
No emails. The chair will entertain a motion.
Motion approved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Donovan?
Yes.
Commissioner Carr?
Yes.
Any?
Yes.
Mayor LaHousas?
Yes, thank you. We are now going to the ordinance and resolutions. Item number 11 is the ordinance 2019-22, rezoning amendment for East Live Oak at Hibiscus Mavromatis. This is a second reading, quasi-judicial. The city attorney will read the title and he will explain the quasi-judicial process.
Mayor, Commissioners, Ordinance 2019-22, an ordinance of the City of Tarpon Springs, Florida, amending the official zoning map of the City of Tarpon Springs, Florida, for approximately 1.46 acres of property located at the northeast corner of East Live Oak Street and North Hibiscus Street and south of Athenian Way, further described as Anklo River Crossing Track C, from T5D North Pinellas Avenue Transect District to T4C Residential High Transect District, providing for findings, providing for an effective date. That was the second final reading of Ordinance 2019-22 by title only. It was published in the Tampa Bay Times by title only with a map on November 11th, 2019, and again on March 13th, 2020. This being a quasi-judicial proceeding, I'll go ahead and read that procedure. This is a quasi-judicial proceeding where the Board of Commissioners acts in a quasi-judicial rather than a legislative capacity. At a quasi-judicial hearing, it's not the board's function to make law, but rather to apply law that has already been established. In a quasi-judicial hearing, the board is required by law to make findings of fact based upon the evidence presented at the hearing and apply those findings of fact to previously established criteria contained in the Code of Ordinances in order to make a legal decision regarding the application before it. The board may only consider evidence at this hearing that the law considers competent, substantial, and relevant to the issues. If the competent, substantial, and relevant evidence at the hearing demonstrates that the applicant has met the criteria, established in the Code of Ordinances, then the board is required by law to find in favor of the applicant. By the same token, if the competent, substantial, and relevant evidence at the hearing demonstrates that the applicant has failed to meet the criteria established in the Code of Ordinances, then the board is required by law to find against the applicant. With that being said, anyone that's going to speak on this item, if you could stand up, raise your right hand, and be sworn under oath. Swear that the testimony you're about to give is going to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay. Mr. Cerna, if you want to make your presentation then.
Yes, Louis Cerna presenting staff comments. Again, this is the second reading of this item. It is a rezoning for a 1.6 acre parcel. It's going from the T5D North Pinellas Avenue transect to the T4C Residential High transect. It's located on the north side of East Live Oak Street. The only change since this was last heard before the board was that on March 11th, 2020, the Ford Pinellas Board heard the city's application for the change in zoning to increase density within the countywide activity center, and they voted unanimously to approve the application. We're recommending approval again, and if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer any of those.
Mr. Mayor, may I ask a question? So is there a declaration of restricted covenants need to be addressed in the hearing today?
Yes, this rezoning does include a restrictive covenant that restricts the maximum density on the property that is permitted. It is a part of the rezoning, so the rezoning is primarily to allow the use. It will not, because of the restrictive covenant, it will not result in an increase in density.
So the request then by city staff is that in the motion to approve this rezoning, you're asking for the commission to require the declaration of restricted covenants?
Yes.
Thank you. Sorry, Mayor.
Thank you.
Questions?
The only question or comment that I have is that the current zoning allows us to have apartments with the same density, but it does not allow to have townhomes, which makes no sense to me. Perhaps the code needs to be updated. Would you please take a look at that?
Yes, yeah, we will be. You did characterize it correctly, and we will be looking at things like that as we do code updates periodically.
Thank you.
I'm good. I saw it in the backup.
Any question, comments?
I'm sorry, for one clarification, I think, Louis, you said that the Ford Pinellas heard this for increasing density, but then you came back and said there's a restricted covenant saying there's no increase in density. So I just want to make sure I'm understanding it correctly from the first presentation, that there's no actual increase in density, correct?
You're correct, yeah. It's a technicality. It is changing the transect would, in the countywide rules, increase density. So technically, they did need to review it and approve it, but they acknowledge the existence of the restrictive covenants and therefore are recommending approval of it.
Okay, thank you.
Or they did vote to approve it, actually.
Thanks.
Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to make a presentation? Anyone in the audience want to speak on this particular item? Thank you. Staff wants to submit its report into evidence?
Yes, we would.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mr. Mayor, it's back to you.
Thank you. Are there any commission comments? If not, I will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call.
Commissioner Donovan?
Yes.
Commissioner Carr?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Terapany?
Yes.
Mayor LaHousas?
Thank you. I didn't ask if we have any emails, do we?
There's no
Oh,
emails.
good. Thank you. Okay, we are now going to miscellaneous, which is item number 12, annexation agreement for property located at the northwest corner of L&R Industrial Boulevard and Anklo Road. Staff report.
Yes, this property that is the subject of this annexation agreement is located on the northwest corner of L&R Industrial Boulevard and Anclote Road. This subdivision began permitting and began construction through Pinellas County, and they are proceeding with final platting through Pinellas County. The applicant is requesting that the property be provided with utility services and from the city of Tarpon Springs, and in accordance with the city's code of ordinances, the property must be annexed into the corporate limits prior to being provided with the utility services. So we are recommending approval of the attached annexation agreement, which was prepared by the city attorney and reviewed by staff.
Thank you. I got a couple of questions that I'd like to ask you. The current density, is that the same, the density will be proposed?
Yeah, my understanding is that this will be, this is going through a, this will be going through a future land use map amendment and a rezoning through the city of Tarpon Springs to, of course, change from the county's designation to the city's designation. So that whatever density that is applied will be consistent to what is proposed. And this will be a separate application that will be heard at a later date.
Okay, do we know what the density is?
Not off the top of my head. I could find out. I could see if I could find out for you.
Okay.
But again, that will come before you. The subject of this evening is the annexation agreement.
Correct, but I want to take all that into consideration myself.
Okay, sure.
The other question that I have is, the city of Tarpon Springs will gain responsibility for the water and the sewer lines. What about the roads and the drainage system?
Yes, my understanding is that those will become responsibility of the city of Tarpon Springs as well.
Okay, and all this will be built to our standards, correct?
That's correct. This has been undergoing review through the city's technical review committee.
Okay. Question that I have, and I'd like to ask the applicant, Mr. Attorney, when it comes. I'd like to get a commitment from the developer that we're going to be using local contractors for this project.
So he has not been sworn in. If you want to step forward, sir, and raise your right hand and be sworn under oath. You swear that the testimony you're about to give is going to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay. Sir, there was a question from the mayor.
The question was if we can get a commitment for you that we're going to be using, you're going to be using local contractors that will help us, help our local economy. And
Yes,
people of
I mean,
Tarpon
that's,
Springs.
George Stammes, Pioneer Developers. We've been in Tarpon Springs for 43 years, developing and building projects in Tarpon and the local area, and all of our subcontractors are local area contractors, our subs. Of course,
Okay.
we're a local company, formed and operating in Tarpon Springs for many years.
So, Mr. Stammes, you're going to put forward local contractors, correct?
Well, yes, I mean...
Tarpon Springs contractors.
Well, I don't know about Tarpon Springs. I mean, Tarpon Springs may not have framers that we need or other contractors, but they're all local area contractors, and of course, when we can, we try to put favor towards local contractors from Tarpon.
Okay. I know many trees that are going to be...
I'm not trying to evade your question, but
I'm
it's
sorry?
kind of... I'm not trying to evade your question, but it's kind of hard to commit to using contractors from Tarpon if they may not be here. You know, that we may not have contractors like that.
But if they're available, you're going to
We
prefer...
try to use them, yes.
Contractors from here.
Yes.
Yeah. The other question that I have is many trees that are being removed. What's the replacement policy that we have and that you're going to be used?
So we're going to replant 1,600 trees on the site during build-out of the site. Some of those are going to be in common areas, and some of those are going to be incorporated into the building sites that we're going to be building on the property.
Okay. And after that being annexed, you're going to have a responsibility to make sure the trees will survive, right?
Yes.
I mean, they will be taken care of, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any commission comments?
I have a comment, Mayor.
Vice Mayor?
Thank you. Lou, I know you don't have an exact unit count in terms of trying to calculate some tax base, so I won't pose the question to Ron, but I will use the opportunity to mention that on a 30-acre site, the amount of tax increase through ad valorem taxes, franchise fees, impact fees, the amount of economic stimulus that goes through the contractors that will be working on the site, I think, is nothing but a benefit to the city. So I look forward to annexing this piece of property and seeing it built out, and I have full faith in Pioneer Homes to do a premier project. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Donovan?
Yeah, I'm glad to see another voluntary annexation. And just this one's for staff. Do we have any idea when we're going to see plans or anything like that further on this?
They are in the works, under review, so I'd say fairly soon, assuming, business as usual.
Okay. Thank you. That's it for me.
No? Thank you. Are there any public comments on this item?
Ken, I'll note that Mr. Delakis did stand up. He did raise his right hand. He has been sworn under oath.
Okay, thank you.
But this isn't a rezoning, so how is it quasi-judicial?
It is
Still
not.
legislative accepting an annexation agreement.
That's correct.
But I did raise my hand, but I just want to clarify it for the members that technically this is not quasi-judicial.
That's correct. I'm sorry. I had done that earlier. I'm thinking that,
That's all right.
we had just
No
done
problem.
it for the
We
previous
just want to
hearing,
make
so
sure
you're
we're
absolutely
on
right.
the record as to where we stand.
Yeah.
Peter Lax, 514 Ashland Avenue. I understand the need to have the utilities in so they can do the building, and in the agreement 2B, it does state that they will pay the fees as if they were an out-of-the-area service provider, which I understand is usually a 25% premium on the water, sewer, and things of that nature. But I'm concerned that we're putting the cart before the horse. What happens if the board, in some reason, does not decide to do this? So, they'll still need to build, they'll still be paying the other fees, but I know we have an ordinance says require them to annex, but we're saying in the agreement they're going to agree to annex, but technically it's not done until the board approves it. So it just seems like a little kind of a catch-22. Secondly, I would like to thank Mr. Stammis and Mr. Zutz for their commitment to put 1,600 trees, because one of my comments was going to be that I felt they possibly denuded the property prior to coming to the city because of our tree ordinance. And so I would like to make sure that that part is taken care of. Now, I know I have to address the board, but I will address it in such a way that Mr. Stammis and Mr. Zutz can hear me and see that this is an offer in a sense. If you look at the notes from the meeting of March 10th in my public comments, and I'm not sure if you became aware of it, but I did offer a challenge to Pioneer Development. Instead of going out and buying raw property, cutting down the trees, and just building homes, you guys, I know you love Tarpon, the Manatee Village Plaza. I spoke with Planning and Zoning. It's an SD 5A property.
Address
You
the
can-
board,
I am-
because they can hear you. We've got speakers everywhere.
It's an SD 5A property that the gentleman, I guess, can verify. It does allow for 4 stories, and in speaking with Pat today, it is a mixed-use type property development. You can put retail on the bottom, offices on the second floor, and the next 2 floors that it's allowed, you can put residential. So you can put condos or townhomes in that. However, there is, being that it's in the special area plan, you can get a conditional use. If you put in a hotel, you can go up 5 stories. So I mentioned at the last meeting, and I will mention again, talk to Eddie. He would give you a beautiful design. You got the apartments that are going, they're calling them Ikra. You guys were Greek. We could build a beautiful Mediterranean-style village there with retail, office, 2 floors of residential, and if that property is so big, you could have residential on part of the property, and on the other part of the property, you could put your hotel. You could lease that out or contract it out to somebody, because as you've been and you've heard before, we need hotel space. So I know you guys have the connections to possibly look at that, so if you can think about that, it'll work. Thank you.
Good idea. Thank you. Any other public comments on this item? Here none. Again, I will ask, any emails?
No emails.
Thank you. The chair will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Donovan?
Yes.
Commissioner Carr?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Terapany?
Yes.
Mayor LaHousas?
Yes, thank you. Now we're moving on to item number 13, which is the resolution 2020-12, ratification and of declaration of the state of emergency, executive order 2020-01, and extension of declaration of state of emergency. Mr. Attorney, if you please read the resolution.
This is Resolution 2020-12, a resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the City of Tarpon Springs, Florida, declaring a state of local emergency for the City of Tarpon Springs as a result of the coronavirus disease 2019 COVID-19 outbreak and its potential threat of harm to the residents and visitors of the City of Tarpon Springs, providing for the waiver of the procedures and formalities required by law pursuant to Florida Statute, Chapter 252, providing for the ratification of the executive order issued by the city manager on March 17, 2020, and providing for an effective date hereof. That was the reading of Resolution 2020-12 by title only.
Thank you. Before I go to the staff comments or staff presentation, on March 17, 2020, Mr. Licouris issued an executive order of declaration for the state of a local emergency, which I believe is necessary. Now, we need to ratify the declaration. We also need to approve to extend the duration of the declaration of state of a local emergency. My question is to the city attorney. Can we approve the extension for 14 days instead of 7 days increments?
So the answer is no. There's a state statute 252.38. It specifically says that the state of emergency has to be reviewed every 7 days.
Yes.
And it doesn't provide for any other time frame. And you remember that that portion of the statute basically addresses the 7-day time frame in order, and you need to do it in order to put yourself in a position to make available state funds and federal funds for losses that the city incurs during the term of the emergency. So we want to do it to make sure that you stay in good stead for the ability to get those monies. And you'll see in this resolution that I drafted, I added some language in paragraph 6 that allows that extension to be revisited in 7-day increments by the city manager. So he will be executing executive orders on an every 7-day basis to make sure that it stays in sync until that point where he believes that it's no longer necessary. And then obviously it will come back here for the city commission to issue a resolution that would halt the state of local emergency. So hopefully I answered your question, but it needs to be done every 7 days.
Every 7 days?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Thank you. That answers my question. Any commission comments? Any commission comments? No? Any public comments? Yes, Father, if you please come forward.
Father Athanasios Harros, 123 North Florida Avenue, also the Dean of the historic St. Nicholas Greek Orthodox Cathedral. I'm only going to say it here, ask the question, because I don't know if it belongs here or where. But somehow, getting myself as the dean, I don't know if the state of emergency addresses access where I'll be able to get into the cathedral. Is that all part of this resolution? Or in terms of limitations within moving around the city, things like that?
No, sir.
No.
No, we're not. That will be in a different item.
Okay.
On the agenda.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Any other public comments?
Peter Delacus, 514 Ashland Avenue, on page 2, in the whereas second from the bottom, where it quotes 252.383A5. If you actually look at it, the language Esquire Trask took on the 8 points above is straight out of the book. And as he mentioned in paragraph 6, he added that in regards to giving the city manager the ability through executive order to continue to extend that. I would ask, though, if that executive order would need to be approved by the commission at a duly authorized meeting. Now, the point I would like to bring up is that I'm sure you've read the paper today that Mayor Castor would like to put in some kind of stay-at-home, and Mayor Kreisman in St. Pete wants to put a stay-at-home. And number one, the performance of public work and taking whatever action is necessary to ensure the health, safety, and welfare of the community, that's pretty broad. Now, in the table of 252 ordinances, I looked through it, and it didn't really describe as whatever action is necessary as what boundaries they are. But it also did not indicate in the statutes that you could not put any boundaries on your administration as to what they can and can't do. And my concern is a curfew. If you put a curfew in just in Tarpon, and you got people coming from Pasco to Clearwater, are we going to be stopping people on 19 or alternate 19? And if you are putting a curfew in and you're stopping people just because they're driving somewhere, I can see where you're actually creating a higher risk. And I would just like to give you an example in that regard. I know a number of you know I'm a night owl. I do stay with my mom and I take care of her. She's 96. I'm there predominantly, but I do have a house that I need to go to occasionally and take care of my dogs and such of that nature. I do go late at night. So I can envision the scenario where it's 12:30 and I'm driving from Green Dolphin to my house. I pass the church on the bayou. There's a policeman there, as there usually is sometimes late at night. He sees me, he stops me, and indirectly, but he may have had contact with someone else previously at a traffic stop, and then indirectly infects me, and then in his questioning or discuss, why am I out? What are you doing? And I'm concerned about certain things in that regard, and then I go home and cross-infect my mother. And I know it can be a wild scenario, but to me, I'm not so much concerned about myself, but getting something that I can transfer to my elderly mother. Now, I guess the point I'm trying to make is I would like to restrict the aspect of individual curfews unless it's countywide or statewide. Because as it was mentioned by Mr. Kreisman earlier today, it's hard to put a curfew in for a certain area because someone going to Palm Harbor and then they're cutting through Tarpon to go to Pasco. I mean, so I don't think we need to have our police officers tied up with minuscule things because, as you see, we're handling our social distancing, and I feel that at night, I know when I'm out, people aren't going out eating, they're not going out drinking, and I'm sure if the police officers have tracks of traffic or movement at night, you'll find that the streets are pretty empty anyway. So I would just like to be cautious about putting any individual curfews in the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Here none. Mr. Licorice, do you want to add anything?
No, again, it's pretty much the standard. We've been through this as a city several times, mostly with hurricane. This is a new thing, but so I don't have anything to add.
Mr. Trask, anything that you want to add?
No, first of all, you need to absolutely adopt this resolution.
I will have no choice but doing that.
Yeah, to protect the city. And as for the issues relative to curfew, I just wanted to mention to you there has been no action taken, and the city manager may want to comment on the curfews, but obviously it's going to come down either from the governor or Pinellas County before it actually comes here. So,
And just to put for the record, to satisfy everybody to go with them, if that situation were to come up, I'd have the ability to call a special BOC meeting to make that decision. I certainly, with all the wisdom I've learned over the years, would not make that one on myself.
Mayor, I would remind the commission that as a direct result of the governor's executive order, it has relaxed the sunshine law a little bit, allows you to attend these meetings by telephone or by video conferencing. And so if it gets to that point, where there needs to be an emergency meeting fairly quickly, as long as all you have a computer or a telephone, we'd be able to call a meeting.
Sure.
There no longer is required to be a physical quorum present. In other words, you don't have to have 3 of you here to make a decision. You can all attend by telephone or video conferencing, so those meetings can be called fairly easily.
Yeah, thank you. Absolutely. Item number 16 is something that we're going to be discussing a little bit more in detail.
Okay.
I need a motion.
Motion approved.
Second.
And roll call, please.
Commissioner Donovan?
Yes.
Carr?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Terapany?
Yes.
Mayor LaHousas?
Yes, thank you. We are now going to item number 14, which is the ratification of the Executive Order 2020-02. City Attorney, do you want to comment on that before we go into the discussion?
So this executive order is in your packet. It just, obviously it's important for the city manager to bring these things to you to make sure that you're in agreement with the executive orders that he's issued. This would just merely be a motion to ratify the executive order 2020-02 that was issued by the city manager on March 20th, 2020. And frankly, the meat of the executive order is in sections 1 and section 2 relative to utility non-payment, utility penalties and fines, and also building permits and inspections in section 2. But I'm sure that the city manager can give you additional information on that if you need that. But it'd be a motion to ratify.
Thank you. As the city attorney stated, we need to ratify this executive order, and which was declared by the city manager Licouris on the March 20th. I support all sections on there, 1 through 6. The executive order is designed to help our city staff to continue to have a safe and efficient operation and to better serve the public in this difficult time. But also, what I like the best of all that is to help our residents. Discussed this provision with Mr. Licouris several times. Many of our local business, they had to close down due to the coronavirus. Many employees, they had to be laid off. Many people leave from paycheck to paycheck, and with that, we will be able to provide some kind of a relief to our people, to our residents, and I'd like all my fellow commissioners to support that. We want to have a unanimous consensus of that. And Mr. Licouris, I'd like to congratulate you for doing that to help the people of Tarpon Springs.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor?
No comments, Mayor.
Any Commissioner Donovan?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I think, again, to kind of echo what the mayor said, I think section 1 is so important that we're not going to be shutting off, water, that all the shut-offs, that kind of stuff is suspended, just making sure that our residents come first. But I really want to commend staff because that wasn't something that we just did today or yesterday. I think we decided that last week. I think our city manager and staff decided that we weren't going to be shutting off any water or utilities or anything like that. So just thank you for being ahead of the game on that and making sure that, in a time when everybody's trying to provide for their families, that kind of stuff is put off. So thank you.
Yes, we actually stopped the shut-offs before I issued the executive order. We saw it getting bad, so we temporarily stopped the shut-offs. And when it was determined several days later, as things moved fast, that it was, then I instituted this to include the ones I had held up before. So we actually held it up and then issued this executive order for you to ratify it and confirm our doing that. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Licouris. We're going to the public comments. Father, we'll ask you to tell the Philoptochos that we're doing that. Appreciate that. Any public comments on this item?
Kyoto's 538 West Cedar Street. Mayor, did you say that the city's laying off employees?
No. I said it throughout in the city. Many businesses, they're shutting down.
Thank you.
And many people, they've been laid off.
Thank you.
And many people that have no paycheck because they just live from paycheck to paycheck.
Thank you for the
Thank you. Any other public comments? I hear none. I need a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
So this is the motion to ratify?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
It was seconded.
And roll call, please.
Commissioner Donovan?
Yes.
Commissioner Carr?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Terapany?
Yes.
Mayor LaHousas?
Thank you. I'm glad. Unanimous. Ms. Jacobs, I didn't ask you if we had any emails on that item.
There have been no emails.
Okay, thanks. We are now going to the item number 15, which is the extension of cancellation, postpone, or special events performance of non-essential meetings of advisory and quasi-judicial boards and committees. Mr. Licouris.
Yes, you, as a commission, did that action. What I wanted to recommend to you, as far as exclusively the postponement of events and performances and stuff, my recommendation is to keep that in effect and postpone them through your meeting of May 12th. Several reasons for that. One, because that meets the CDC guidelines when they talked about 8 weeks. And at the time I wrote it, that was one of the original reasons. We've seen the times get worse. I don't see any way the 3 events that's going to involve a lot of people. First Friday in May, Salsa, May 2nd, and the Wine Walk on the 9th. These are organizations that are selling tickets involved in it. I think we need to make a decision to let them know to begin the process of rescheduling those events, because again, they're doing these things ahead of time. You've seen the developments of the days. I see no way these major events are going to be able to be happening. 1st of May, this gives you the time to your meeting, your first meeting of May, to look at where the situation is and see where these events go. So my recommendation to you as far as the events go is till May 12th. So we can give proper notification for those particular events, especially the ones I mentioned.
Mr. Licouris, the CDC recommended to postpone the special events for 8 weeks. When does 8 weeks begin, do they say?
That was about a week and a half ago. So that's why it comes out right around the 10th, 9th, 10th, 11th, when they recommended that they all be done for each. It falls right about these dates, the dates of your first meeting in May. So that's in proximity to the closest meeting. That's why I recommended that, plus to give the groups that are doing those beginning events at the very beginning of May the time to let their vendors, let the people they're knowing in, let their bands, and let them know and plan for a future date where hopefully they can come back and go to a date when the situation is over with and we can have large groups again.
Thank you. I hope that'll be the last time we do something like that. Any commission comments?
I have one, Mayor.
Vice Mayor?
Thank you. So regarding the special events, I'm on board with the 8 weeks, but the agenda item talks a little bit about some of the non-essential advisory board meetings, and then some of which that I would also consider essential. So are we going to talk about that on this item?
Yeah,
Mr.
this is a combination of probably this item and your next item, so they're going to kind of run together, because I wasn't sure when we wrote this where we were going to be in that, looking at the, with the city attorney helping us interpret the relaxation of the sunshine law and stuff. So presently, what it looks like and what I sent, you saw the memo I sent to all the boards and the chairmans today, is I'm anticipating that with this situation we have, that we probably are not going to have any non-essential of those boards meeting in April, but I'm fully confident that we'll have the ability through teleconferencing, which our IT staff is working at lightning rate to do, that we will have the availability for the meeting of the 14th, which we need to talk about. And if there's an essential, essential meeting that is very needed to kill a project, probably in the 3 areas of planning and zoning, historical preservation, the Board of Adjustments. If there are those items, it's not just as simple as taking a board and having a meeting. When I give you the information that we're working on, and of course we'll be doing tests over the next 2 weeks. We might involve, we are going to involve people in some mocks to see how this works. Because there's several ways, and I'm sure the city attorney, when we talk about the meetings, there's several ways that people are doing. I looked at Orlando. Orlando's got about 4 or 5 different ways they're doing it. But I think fully expect that if it gets bad and we have to go to a meeting where you can't meet in this building, maybe we'll be able to meet like we did today. Maybe we'll have to go to teleconferencing, which our IT staff, I'm assured that we'll be able to have that and bring that to you for the decisions you have to make, especially when you come to the next meeting. And the one thing you have to do as a meeting is ratify the election. That's one thing that's mandatory. There's usually not anything on those meetings, which we'll talk about in the next item. We got to talk about the ceremony in the next item. We got to talk about ratifying the election. But we should have capabilities for those items that's going to ruin a project that are really essential, because it's going to take a lot of time to take if we, for instance, have to do a planning and zoning or the 2 boards. It's going to take a lot to get those people on the boards and everything set up for that to be done. But I think we will have the capabilities after the 14th, and I'm thinking at least from the 14th to the 30th that we'll be able to have a meeting if it's essential, and then hopefully with the progress that we get next couple weeks after we test this system and stuff, we can start looking at the ability to start up some of those other meetings. But you got to remember, to do this teleconference, it takes a lot of manpower. It's going to take training of the people, and we just don't know where we're going to be in April. And what needs that I have for my staff to even attempt that, except for the meetings where, again, the essential meetings, which is why I'm saying we can do the essential meetings. But probably the other meetings, we'll probably be looking at it May, if depending on the situation that we have out there and the way it goes. So that's my right now. But again, it's a changing aspect.
Actually, this item number 15 is 2 different subjects. One is to the extension of cancellation or postponement of special events and performance, and the other one is about discussion about the meetings. So let's just talk about the events first, and then we'll come back about the meetings because it's relating to item number 16 as well. Okay. Do we have anything on the special events, cancellation of special events? We're going to go to the public comments. I know Father Harris is here. He wants to share something with us.
Father Athanasios Harros, 123 North Florida Avenue, also the Dean of our historic St. Nicholas Greek Orthodox Cathedral. Obviously, unlike the wine walk, we can't reschedule Easter. And so the big thing where this affects us is the permit for Holy Friday going through the city streets with the procession. As of today, currently all services in the cathedral are closed to any parishioners except for 4 of us, myself being the 5th one. And no one else is allowed in the cathedral during services, for now. The Metropolitan has given us no instructions yet relative to Holy Week and Easter. And so my request would be at this time, allow us the opportunity, if by God's grace things get better and we can process for Holy Friday, that we find some way, some loophole, because if we just get canceled, then somewhere where we can maybe expedite, if by God's grace things get better, where we can expedite the ability for us to do our procession, because we can't reschedule Easter, obviously. So that would be I don't know how we can work that out, but I know everyone thinks it's not going to be any better, but you know what, we have to at least allow for some of God's grace in here to make things better, hopefully, for all of our citizens. So unlike other special events, that's something we can't reschedule. We can't just do Easter in June sometime. So we are going to continue privately with services in the church for now. and obviously no one is being allowed inside the church, and we'll do Friday night that way, and we'll do midnight that way if that's what's necessary. My only request is somehow on the record, allow us, if things get better at the discretion and the discernment of the CDC and what have you, that we would somehow be able to expedite reapproving the Holy Friday procession. Does that make sense in my request? I don't know if it's possible, but that would be my request in advance.
Thank you. Are there any oth-
And I really want to be designated as an essential something so I can access the cathedral no matter what during this time. I don't know how we have to do that.
Thank you.
Hi, Nikitas Manus, President of the Parish Council, St. Nicholas Cathedral. We'd like to let the City Commission know, and the Honorable Mayor, that the parish will do anything that is decided by this commission. We have been a long vested people in this community, and we're not asking to break the law. We're asking to be allowed, if by some miracle, that we would be able to process on Holy Friday and congregate on Holy Saturday. As of now, our parish council, at our own advice, shut down the parish last night, the church. We had approximately 81 people in church Sunday, and we said that's not good. So the parish council moved forward and canceled all services except for the priest. And today we canceled allowing anyone into the church until we see what's moving on. But the only thing that we're asking, if by chance everything can go well, and I mean, we hear today the president saying after Easter he wants people to go back to work. So our Easter, we're lucky, is a week after, so we'll see what happens. But whatever the council decides, you can be sure you will have our cooperation in any decision you make. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comments on this item?
Mayor, are we talking about special events or meetings at this point, or both?
Well, we want to talk about the events first, and then we'll come back for the meetings.
Will you ask for public comments for the meetings?
For the, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, back to us. Commission comments, ideas?
I've got a question, Mayor. Is that the Easter extravaganza that we're talking about?
Well, the April 17th is the Orthodox Good Friday, and that's what Father was talking about. And I believe it starts, if I'm not mistaken, about 7 p.m.
Yes. It's not even on our list of cancellations?
Not on the list, it's not.
Is it an approved, Mark, do you know, is that an approved item that was commission approved?
Not sure if it went to you or not, but trying to remember.
So, I mean, so far there's an April 14th meeting scheduled. So, I mean, if things have gotten better at that point, it's 3 days in advance. I think we could do something at that point if needed.
And again, just a reminder, the CDC would have to pull that 8-week, have to pull that back, and I don't see that happening. We can see miracles will happen, but I don't see that happening in the middle, in April.
Well, we can see that Father Harris is very, very concerned about the welfare, the safety and welfare of the people, the parishioners of St. Nicholas. I don't think he will take any chances if he says that it's not. So we just wait and see, but we have to go with what the CDC advised us to do, because it's very, very, right now, it doesn't look good at all. So we have to make sure that our people are safe. Commissioner Donovan.
Thank you, Mayor. So just to be clear, the First Friday procession, that would be included in this, correct? Because it's a special event. I know it's not listed, but it is an event.
It's not enlisted. Father, you didn't mention about the next day, which is the Easter night. We normally go outside to say Christos Anesti. This is in addition to that, please, if you please come, just to get a clarification on that.
Yeah, so again, in terms of crowd size, during that entire week, our three big crowds are Palm Sunday, which is Western Easter, Holy Friday night, and midnight on the 18th/19th. The only event that we ever go through permitting is the Friday night, which goes through the public streets in the long procession downtown. We leave our church, we go down Orange Street to Ring Street to Tarpon Avenue, then up Tarpon Avenue back to the church. That goes through permitting as a special event. My understanding from Mr. Sissoy is that paperwork went through within the 90 days a long time ago and was on file as their request. That gets permitted every year. The midnight, where on a healthy year, 3 or 4, I don't know how many thousand show up on the grounds of the cathedral, and it spills out into Pinellas Avenue and Orange Street. That doesn't get permitted because it's at midnight. It happens very briefly for a half hour, and then the crowd disperses, and then the streets are reopened. I don't believe that's ever permitted, just the procession that goes through the downtown streets.
Okay.
As of now, none of that would happen because nobody can come to the church.
Okay.
Maybe.
Did it answer your question?
Yes. Go ahead.
So can our city attorney, would you mind clearing this up for me? So is this included if we say we're going to postpone all special events and performances for an 8-week period, even though it's not listed, would the procession be included?
So that's a decision you're going to have to make if you want to include it. It's not a special event. The special events normally would be those things that are permitted by your city. So if you want to include it, you should include it now and let them know now. And obviously, the CDC is telling them that they should not be doing this within the next 8 weeks.
We're not currently planning.
Gotcha, I understand.
And again,
I'm
it
clear
may
on
be
that.
something that it was left off the list, but of course, I'm saying all events, so that would be included on there if that's not on the list. And again, realistically, you're not going to see a major procession of people on the streets on April 19th, 18th, 19th, or 20th. You're not going to see it.
Okay.
It's just not going to happen.
Mr. Attorney, Mr. Trask.
Yes, Mayor.
Can we actually pass the list that it's here on the backup, and as an addition for April 17th at 7 p.m., the position that Mr. Licorice will decide a few days before if it's safe enough to have that event and communicate that with further?
So the easy answer to your question would be yes, the city manager can make that decision, but if the governor has acted or Pinellas County has acted, they control. And so there's nothing that the city manager could do that would go over what the executive order of the mayor or Pinellas County has done. Those are going to be controlled.
That's understood, yeah.
Right.
Okay, that's understood.
That's my recommendation.
I think we still have a public comment.
Commission, Mr. Dalakis.
Peter Lax, 514 Ashland Avenue. Just for clarification, if you look at the minutes from February 25th on page 6, special events, Orthodoxy procession March 8th, Good Friday procession April 17th, and if you look on page 7, those were approved unanimously. So those are approved special events.
Thank you, sir.
Mayor, can I understand the clarification? So the recommendation is to suspend, postpone all special events except the procession on the 17th? Providing that the city manager make a decision a few days before? I mean, a few days before we have a commission meeting, so why don't we go ahead and wait until, on that commission meeting, if that's the case, why don't we go ahead and just allow it if everyone's healed?
You know, let's remember that the next commission meeting is going to be a celebration. It's going to be a ceremonial type meeting. So I'm not really sure who that's going to be. So I think it's wise to have Mr. Licorice to make the decision. And Mr. Trask had a very good idea. If the governor decides that is going to put any restrictions, or the county will make any restrictions, then we'd have to go with that. That's my opinion, though.
Okay. I think we're capable of making the decision. If we're going to have a meeting a few days before, I don't really see the difference in directing our city manager to step in and make the decision for us. I think we're all right to make the decision. Something I'm considering is that if the CDC is telling us to do this, maybe our city manager can help me out here. Is this something that later on, again, God willing, we recover, this is all over soon, and then when it comes time to help fund and get some dollars back into our local economy, that kind of stuff, is this one of those things that they could point to and say, hey, you didn't take this as seriously as some other communities did because you didn't postpone events for 8 weeks like we recommended? Would this be breaking recommendation if we waited until the next meeting to decide on this?
Well, I'm not sure. I'd like to go on speculation because you never know what they're going to do in those things. What I'm going to say to you, it'll be clearly laid out and you'll clearly know way before then if there's the ability to do that. Obviously, that came up a lot in the county meeting when they were talking about the beaches, and if you don't close all the beaches, then it is an emergency. So is this the emergency we say it is? If it's the emergency we say it is, this is probably not going to happen. But I think either county, statewide, or a parent by us still being in a state of emergency, as long as we're in a state of emergency, it won't happen. I'm not so sure if you prove it. I'm not so sure under proper things. We could probably shut it down anyway. I don't want to talk about that and get to that point. Mm-hmm. But for the safety and public safety in emergency situations, so it's not going to hurt because I think you'll have plenty of evidence before your meeting to decide yourself, and they'll know pretty much ahead of time what the situation is, and it'll be a given as long as some of these other events need some time. But I don't think it's an issue either way, whether you do it, I do it, or something. The evidence will be out there by all the edicts, and it'll be a very easy decision to do from whoever makes the decision.
I'd like to clarify something. Commissioner Donovan, you said that city manager will make the decision for us. Let's not forget that city manager has the right to declare a state of emergency. So he has the right to do that. We already gave him the right to do that.
Oh yeah, no, I
mean,
completely understand the
It's not like we're giving
situation.
him now the authority to do that. He's had it all along.
Oh yeah,
And I think it's easiest if the situation goes to be able to put it on the agenda. If things do a miraculous clear up, we can add on the agenda. We can add an agenda to do it again if that's the word. The chances of that are so slim.
Very slim.
It really doesn't matter what decision you made. The decision is going to be made. So however, we can always come back the 14th if things brighten completely up and hey, we need the emergency approve that to get them going. It's not like they got to organize, get vendors. Yeah. They can mobilize with 24 hours notice to do what they're going to do. So it doesn't hurt the 14th if we see something to put that on the agenda and allow them to and make the change to allow them to do it. Like I say, the chances of that are very, very slim.
Mayor?
Yes.
Can I make a recommendation and then, or speak to this and then make a motion? So I don't see, obviously if the CDC hasn't lightened the restrictions prior to the event, then I think it's safe to say the event regarding the church isn't going to happen. Mm-hmm. So I don't have any issue with the time that it will take to put this on the agenda to allow the church to have the procession in the event that the CDC lifts the restriction. So I'm okay with it being on the 14th. With the exception of that, everything else I'm willing to postpone or cancel for an 8-week period that's on this list. And I can make a motion to that effect, if that's what you're looking for.
Vice Mayor and Mayor, if I can, I believe the priest asked, is there a way for a special approval if it were to clear up before the event were to happen? So it didn't seem like they were against postponing it currently, but if it does clear up, then at that point, would we be able to approve it, and 3 days in advance would ultimately give us that approval right?
Yeah, I'm with
you.
I agree.
Okay, I just want to make sure I understood that.
Mm-hmm.
So it'd all be postponed, and then if it all clears up, then on the 14th, we could add it back to the agenda saying it can be approved, potentially, if it's all agreed upon, that it's all cleared up, et cetera, CDC lifted guidelines, et cetera.
Yes.
All right. I need a motion.
Motion to postpone all special events for an 8-week period with including the procession for the Greek Orthodox Cathedral, but should the CDC lift the restriction prior to April 14th, at that meeting we'll discuss allowing the procession or not. Does that cover it?
Yeah. Okay. Second.
Commissioner Donovan?
Yes.
Commissioner Carr?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Terapany?
Yes.
Mayor LaHousas?
Yes, thank you.
So again, the second portion of the item, we're talking about meeting, again.
The
reading-
second portion, Mark, excuse me interrupting you, but we can actually combine that with the next item on the
that's fine.
agenda. It's the same thing, right?
That's fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
So the first thing, again, I want to explain to you, and the city attorney explained, obviously, when this first started and when the governor relaxed the order, got the attorney general to relax the order, we were looking at methods to have the meeting. The first thing I want to address is the most important thing of the 14th. There's two important things to happen the 14th, and we got to decide on because there's going to be problems with the state. We got to decide how our new commissioners are going to be sworn in. Obviously, in all the other cities so far I've looked at, I think Olds, several of them usually have celebrations, usually have packed audiences with people and that, and they're all obviously canceling them because it'd be in violation of the rules going. So we have to talk how we're going to do the ceremonies. We'll have to talk about several ways because we don't know where we are. Is it going to be a place where we can spread people? Is it something where we restrict the guests? Because obviously we don't want to first come, first serve mad dash and when the seats are gone. If it ends up being a teleconference meeting where we're going to have nobody in here, what do we do there? So that's the first thing we got to talk about. You have to talk about it on a board. And it's kind of tough because we don't know where we're going to be. As you see from the past weeks, every day things are changing. So we just got to look at the different options it could be and how we're going to do it. I know technically I think the clerk has talked with the city attorney, and technically the clerk could swear him in without me. Is that correct, Tom? Or yes. They could be sworn in and that can be taken care of. Obviously, it's a very important event of swearing in, working that hard and getting in. So that's the balance of how we talk about doing it, how we satisfy the rules we're acting under and there. The second thing, of course, is that we have to have some ability to have the meeting, which again, I have full confidence, and we'll be testing to have some method of doing it. Even if we get to the extreme and have to teleconference, we'll be able to do that because the one thing you have to do on the 14th is to ratify the election. It was not, we weren't able to do that tonight because we were not in the position to be able to do it tonight. So you have to, so I have no concerns about that now because I know there'll be some form of a meeting we'll be able to have. So those are the two things we really have to talk about and discuss for the circumstances, where they may be, and how we're going to do that meeting of the 14th, which is, again, there's nothing on the items besides ceremonial, of course, appointment of a vice mayor, appointment of someone for Forward Pinellas, and of course the ratification. So there's no other items or anything else planned for it anyway. And we'll be able to do those things in some format of a meeting, but I think the real thing we need to talk about is how we're doing the ceremonial part of the meeting.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Liqueras. Well, let me explain what, not only about the meeting on the 14th, but in general. Governor DeSantis, he relaxed the Sunshine Law, and he allowed to have, to be able to have public hearings for remote locations using technology, telephonic, and video conferencing, which I think is going to be beneficial in many, many times. But also, it brings an opportunity and challenge for you and for the IT department to get the technology ready for that. What I like to do, the number one thing that I want to make sure is that we're addressing the issues for the BOC meetings, that we have meetings that we can actually have regardless if we're all going to be in the same location or not. Then, I like to make sure that we have the advisory boards, such as the Planning and Zoning, the Board of Adjustments, the Heritage Preservation Board, to be able to issue permits and to to start projects so people can go back to work. That's very important to me that we have those three boards to be able to meet, regardless if it is on-site or remotely. And then we can do the other advisory boards later. But to me, the BOC is the number one, and the three advisory boards, which is very, very, to me, is necessary to have them on board right away, give them the ability to be able to meet. That way we can actually be able to issue permits and let people go back to work. So that's what I want to.
I agree with you,
question
Mayor.
first. Huh?
I agree with you, Mayor.
Thank you. The other part, as far as on the April 14, the ceremonial that we have, and I'm sure that we're all going to agree, and I'm sure we're going to have the technology in here available, and we're going to invite as few people as possible, just like we are here today, and everybody else can watch it on TV. We want to make sure that people are safe. Commissioner Donovan.
So which committees and boards did you list, Mayor, other than BOC?
Well, the ones that are, well, of course, the Board of Commissioners, us. Then will be Planning and Zoning Board, the Board of Adjustments, and the Heritage Preservation. That's the three boards that you want to have, give them the ability to be able to meet first, because we need to be able to issue permits and to start projects and send people back to work.
But for those boards, are you saying that they would meet virtually, or would it be the same situation as
Whatever the
You just
sunshine
don't
law
know.
allows.
In some form.
In some form.
Yeah, let me just jump in here to make sure that we don't lose track of what the governor's order actually said. It says local government bodies may utilize communications media technology such as telephonic and video conferencing as provided in Florida Statute Section 120.54. It's immediately then followed up with, this executive order does not waive any other requirement under the Florida Constitution and the Florida's Government and the Sunshine Laws, including Chapter 286 Florida statutes. So what is he saying there? He's basically saying, look, you can attend this meeting by telephone or video conferencing, but you still have to meet all the other requirements. It has to be a meeting that has been properly noticed. It has to be a meeting that has access to the public and that minutes are taken. So the public access is going to be really, really important. So you're going to have to allow people to be here, whether you're here or not. They can also do it by way of email, or if they want to be included in joining by video conferencing, and you want that, give them that access, you're going to need to make that decision eventually, or the city manager will do that. But the public still has the ability to be here. So we'll be doing these meetings, whether it's all four of these boards, they should be done still here. And as many people on the board as we can get physically here, then that's probably what should happen. And then the others attend by telephone. But the public still needs to have access to the meetings.
I agree with that.
Okay.
I mean, there was not a question on that.
Okay.
Of course, we're still going to follow the process that we do in regards to the public hearings, to the open public hearings, except they're not going to be here presently.
And
What
I
I'm
just wanna
recommending, though, because technology needs to be implemented, let's concentrate on the boards that we need to have first, and then we get the others. That's what I'm recommending.
Okay.
And we'll know a lot better. Again, we're looking at everything, and again, first of all, we'll have to watch, because there's going to be things happening. Again, my research, I was watching the Orlando area in the different meetings. One meeting did it by email, one meeting did it by voice, one meeting did it with people in the parking lot in separate places, and when their item was there, they were called in for the item that they want. So right now, everybody is experimenting with this realm. This technology we're looking at, we think we can actually have people come in to the meeting. Obviously, you can see it because it's going to live stream, but this technology we're working on, we can have people go, put some type of marker, I can't tell their terms, and actually they can come up, either voice or hopefully voice in themselves to be a part of the meeting. But that begs the question of the people who don't have access. And I think those questions are going to be worked out in the next, as people are going to these things, going to be worked out. Does that provide enough if they're able to do that? Or is the people in the community who don't access to, whether it's a computer, a phone, or however, if they don't have that access to it, is that going to be a restriction? So that's why I'm saying I don't have an idea of what the form is going to be of these meetings, but we're looking at every possible combination, and I'm sure it'll work out between the people who are having meetings now in many different ways. I'm sure the city attorney will be able to tell us in a week or two which one he believes is going to be proper for us to do, and which method is not. We are looking to have all methods, all combinations of methods, IT available to us to be able to say what the city attorney tells us. The laws are coming out, so we've got a lot of different options that we can use because we want to be ready for whatever option we need to use depending on what the circumstances are in the county, state, and world, and that we can bring you some form of meeting that meets what the governor says. So that's why it's hard for me to say to you what exactly it's going to be, because we don't exactly know, but we'll get there, and we have to make sure it's legal.
Vice Mayor Terrapini.
Commissioner Donovan wasn't finished yet, Mayor.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Yeah, my only other thing, that's the biggest concern, right, is public comment and making sure that people are able to comment. I think we're on the right track with the email being read, so that people can email in if they want to make a public comment, and that'll be read into the record. I think just some additional stuff that I've seen from other cities around the state is letters. If we have the backup out in advance, somebody wants to write a letter and put, hey, I would like this to be read into public comment. Same concept as the email. And then something else we might want to discuss, because I saw a few cities do it, is phone calls, where we have like a hotline if somebody wants to make a public comment on something. Not necessarily live. I know that would be hard to configure. But before the meeting, if somebody wants to make a public comment on something, they call into like a hotline, they leave their voicemail, and then similar to how our meetings are typed up, the city clerk can read that. So not necessarily playing the whole voicemail or having to type out the whole voicemail, but just getting their sentiments on the record. So, if John Doe calls in and he's against an annexation or something like that, then the city clerk can reference, hey, we did receive a public comment via telephone. They left a message. John Doe is against the annexation for, ... that kind of thing. So those are just a couple of different ways that I've seen some cities do their public comments, and I think that's something that we should consider, because I think just making sure that everybody feels comfortable doing public comment is really the crux of what we're trying to get at.
It's very important to have public comments to get the people's input. But I would like to ask the city attorney on that. When we have a phone call, because you don't know exactly what they were talking about, and if they're using language that is not appropriate, how can you disconnect it?
Okay, well, that's a technology issue, and so obviously
See what I mean?
there may be a
But if they
5-second delay
hear,
that
you can
may
tell
be
them
able
to
to build
stop,
in.
Well, I'm not saying like a live feed phone call either. I'm saying like they leave a voice message, and then our city clerk would give us a summary of what the message said.
Okay. Yeah, that can be done too. And we've got some challenges, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We've got some challenges. Vice Mayor
Thank you.
Terrapini.
So I wholeheartedly agree with you, Mayor, in terms of the what I would call the essential boards, since we're talking about boards and essential services. For me, it's important to remember and recognize that boards such as not only the Board of Commissioners, but the Planning and Zoning Board, Heritage Preservation, and the Board of Adjustment and Appeals, some of these approvals stem on people's financial mortgage payments regarding an approval or a site plan approval, or just I think yesterday I received 3 advertisements, or not I guess the postcards that you get, the mailers for the Historic Preservation Board. So I mean, just in the coming meeting, there's 3 different applicants that are requesting approval for X, Y, and Z. So I think it's really important, one way or another, whether it's a meeting set up like this or a virtual meeting, with the restriction or with the lightening of the restrictions and the sunshine law that the governor's given us, I think that it's absolutely important that those meetings stay on track. So to reiterate, Board of Commissioners, Board of Adjustment, Planning and Zoning Board, and Heritage Preservation Board, that those continue to meet monthly. So I would definitely support that, and I think it's very important that everybody else does as well. And then regarding the, discussion with the audio conferences or how we telephone in, I trust that the city manager and staff with the city attorneys to help will, make sure that the meetings can take place legally and appropriately as set forth in whatever abilities we have to do so. So, just to sum it up, I think that the BOC needs to meet, those other 3 boards need to meet, and if it's a non-essential advisory board, public art committee, I mean, while all of that other business is important, in this trying time where, as the city manager said, more staff time is going to be required to literally host some of these meetings, I think it's important to not overload the system and stick to the ones that play the most important roles. So if it's not essential, not to physically place it on the back burner, but if we don't have the resources to commit, then those not be favored as the other ones should be. So that's kind of my thinking. Regarding the meeting of the 14th, whether we have an actual meeting in this auditorium with invited guests, I would defer to the commissioner-elect and also Commissioner Carr in terms of their sentiment on the issue. Ultimately, it is a ceremonial event, so if they went either way, whether they want to get sworn in the clerk's office or whether they want to have their family here, I would defer to them on that matter. But regarding essential board meetings, I think that they need to continue one way or the other.
Commissioner Carr.
Thanks, Mayor. I will support the same conversations that were had so far tonight about the Planning and Zoning, Historic Preservation Board, and Board of Adjustment, and the Board of Commissioners as well. I know it sounds like Mark's got his staff working on some creative aspects. I'm looking forward to hearing how those would go. Is there a discussion on that, potentially the other boards that weren't discussed as a primary board for urgency? Would those pick back up in May? Let's say we're under the same situation. Would the target be to start in May for those boards to do something similar with the other boards?
I think, and again, we've got to see how the testing goes next 10. I think for those essential boards, especially if there's applications that are sensitive, that going to May would be too late. I believe, depending on how it goes and how we do the 14th meeting, that we could set those up. We could set those up between the 14th and the end of the month. If all goes well, everything goes off with the meeting, we have it. And again, and we'd work and look at the applicants, and we'd work at all the applicants. I mean, there may be no essential ones on there, and applicants can wait till May to do it. But if there's some crucial things, some deadlines, whether it be whatever the deadlines are, and it's a make or break or some type of harm to any of our citizens doing anything in those things, then I think we'd be able to, while the date might change, that I think we could do that between the 14th and 30th. Depending on the situation out there and what we can do and can't do with meetings. And again, I've got an IT staff I'll put up against anybody in the state. So our IT staff, if it's able to be done, without the advanced order of equipment, that if it can be done in a short amount of time with the materials we've got, I've got confidence in them. So again, we would look at that, look what's coming up, talk with each applicant, how crucial that is of their project or doing it, and then try to have it in a timely meeting after the 14th so they don't lose a project, we don't cause any hardships with any of the applicants.
Sure. Okay, thank you for that update or clarification. From the standpoint of swearing in, to me it's an easy discussion. We just canceled as a board of commission all special events for the next 8 weeks. This is a special event that we're having as a board of commission. I don't think we should have it. It could be done privately in the clerk's office, but I'm not planning on having my family here. I don't think we should have the ceremony as we traditionally do because of the situation that we're in right now. We're in a special circumstance. It's not to not celebrate the hard work and the confidence that the residents have in myself and the commissioner-elect, but in this aspect, like I've said, the governor's asked us not to congregate in groups larger than 10 people. And then the Board of Commission, again, just postponed all special events across the city. So I think it would look not very tasteful if we did this on the 14th. I think in a private setting would be best, myself. And to reiterate, I should have a son that's about 2 weeks old at that time, too. Thanks.
Any other commission comments?
I agree with Commissioner Carr that it would probably be in bad taste to have it. I mean, we just postponed all special events, and then we'd have our own special event here. Yeah, I think the ceremonial stuff should not be happening.
Commissioner-elect Gutierrez is over here. If you please give us your input on that.
No, I'm okay with it, but you two are going to have to deal with my wife if she feels otherwise. So I think she's going to be okay with it as well. Mayor, it's a formality. I've been through these before. My children, except for one, are out of town, so I'd rather them stay safe than see this. So I do have some other comments, and I can wait till later on that.
Oh, you can go ahead and we'll finish with that.
There are a couple of things. I agree with everything as far as the P&Z and board adjustments and the others. I would like for there to be some kind of a specific date announced at some point for the other committees and advisory boards. I know they're eager. They've got some very important things that they're trying to do. I don't want to call them non-essential. They're very important, and they want to get on with their work. It's long-term stuff that they're dealing, and they're fighting, trying to get every second that they can. April 14th is ceremonial, but that's under normal circumstances. I would highly recommend that you keep that date open, even if it's swearing in that night, perhaps having some agenda items on there. My suspicion is you're going to probably have some anyway that are going to pop up between now and then that may be of an emergency nature that you're going to have to deal with, that the city manager either can't or won't deal with. The other thing I wanted to mention, I think it's real important to keep the city moving. Just with the boards going on, Mary, you mentioned people losing their jobs, waitresses, waiters, they just don't have work right now. What that's going to do is it's going to translate into revenue to the city. And I know Commissioner Donovan is on track with looking at non-essential budgeted items to try and roll those up into some grant programs, but that's on the expenditure side. There's some very important things that are going to be happening on the revenue side. There's 12 revenue items that are, each one of those are going to, revenue lines, each one of those are going to be affected in a different way. And there's some, and you don't get, the city doesn't get paid on a regular basis, sometimes monthly, bi-monthly, quarterly, and that comes in sometimes semi-annually. So the cash flow is going to be very important, and I would hope that you would consider having some workshops along those lines to try and get an understanding of what this health crisis is going to mean in terms of a financial crisis to the city. We've got, as employees, we've got payrolls to make. That's 70% of the money that comes into the city supports our employees. So it's very important, and I wouldn't want to get a phone call or an email from the city manager someday that we're really, really getting tight on money and we need to make some, take some precautionary measures. My feeling is it's important to stay one step ahead of this time and kind of look at those things now rather than getting caught by surprise later. So that's my only other comment. And I'm not sure how you feel about the Budget Advisory Committee, how much of a role they have strategically, but they're very important and they have a knowledge of the city budget. They may be helpful as well to roll into one of those committees that y'all were talking about. I'll leave that up to you. I don't have that much experience of working with them, but I do know that the budget and revenues and the projections that Ron made as far as increases in monies that we should expect over this next year isn't going to happen. Are we going to lose more than 50%? No. We're going to lose more than 1%? Yeah, probably on between 10 and 20% would be what I would guess. And so you're looking at, out of a $60 million budget, maybe only having $50 million to deal with. In addition, and what I'm getting at is that you've got the city expenses that you have to maintain. I really believe strongly that whatever we can do to help the businesses as well out of that pot of money. And I also think that we need to not give up moving the city forward with some of the things that Commissioner Terrapini was talking about of keeping jobs moving and things coming back into the city. So it's going to be a major challenge for us. It's a health crisis for people. It's going to be a financial crisis as well for the City Commission. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Peter Lax, 514 Ashland Avenue. With regards to Mr. Vaticiotis' comments about budgetary issues, I'm sure those will be addressed during budget season, which will be coming up not too far from now, and you do have reserves to cushion us through that point, and you'll be able to make those decisions. But I would like to just point out, you already have done a good job of holding a meeting in these type of times. I know we're not a full house, but you've been through meetings before. Unless there's a hot item, there's 10, 12, 15 people maybe here. So you can set it up where you can mark chairs every 5 feet. I don't know if that area is open, but it can be done that way. And the reason why I say it, as Esquire Trash said, these are public meetings. Now, sending in an email, if you have some type of comment about a particular item, and if you want to call and say, yeah, but they can call you and say, hey, Commissioner Donovan, I don't like that item, or I love that item, or I think this or that. But if you're going to have a telephonic or video type meeting live streams, you need to have a phone there so I can call up, or Joe can call up, or Jane can call up during the meeting after they're listening to what y'all say to either retort, rebut, or accentuate. Because this is real virtual. So I would say for your meetings, and y'all haven't talked about code enforcement, because even though it's not projects, there are people's monies on the line at code enforcement meetings too. You know, whether fines are running and they need to have something stopped, or things are going through, and that's, again, administratively. But I would say you do have the capabilities to use this hall in meetings. And if you do live stream, now, as far as if you have an emergency meeting, and again, noticing, because you know I'm coming to a lot of meetings. I was here on the 10th, and I found out after the emergency meeting on the 12th that you had it. So y'all need to do a good job of letting people know if you're having meetings. But if you're going to do some kind of off-site meeting or calling in, then there has to be some way where we can not only view it, but comment to it. So I think in a way, let's try not to make it more complicated than we need to right now. Find ways to use this hall. Maybe some of your smaller meetings can still use the upper conference room. I'm not sure how big some of the boards are, but realistically, this is still your best option. You've got your video recording equipment here. Y'all have set it up properly, so the clerk's there, the chief, the city manager in there. You got Chief Young back there, so everybody's kind of covered. But I would please, if you're going to have meetings, try to have them here so you're not obstructing the public from commenting on those issues. And also for planning and zoning. You know, people have projects and people get the cards and they want to know, they want to be able to come and speak. So don't make it harder than you need to. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Where's Mr. Licouris? Seems like just about all the ideas we have were similar. So are you going to look and see what can you do with the technology that you have available and let us know?
Yes.
If you would, please.
I want to have available whatever technology we need to have the meeting, depending on the times, the edicts from state and federal and stuff. So I'll hopefully have many options to do so we can make the decision based on what the circumstances are at the time, which could change very fast. So that's my goal, and that's staff's goal to do. And everything that's been said so far, you know, I agree with everything that's been said so far.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Licouris, this is the actually the last item on the agenda. I want to ask you a couple questions. Do we have employees that can actually work remotely?
Yes, right now, per the email I sent to you, we began Monday with a staff meeting for everybody to look at their divisions, look at their departments, and again, look for every degree where this situation could go to, whether we're able to be full staff, whether we have to start having people work remotely, who can work at home, IT to pull every laptop out available so we can do that. We actually, again, with our IT staff and thinking ahead, obviously not knowing about this that's going to happen, we began a couple of years ago replacing all of our desktops with laptops that would do, so that people would have capability as we do things in the future. You see, we're going to video inspections, we're doing a lot of stuff. So instead of buying those desktops that are real bulky to move, they've been changing those out with laptops. So those people have the capability of just unplugging from their system they have on his desk, take home and operate the system. We've already tested a couple of employees this week of the ability for them to actually answer their phone in their office, to answer it at home. So they're not only at the desk in our computer system able to do work, but a phone call comes to the planning secretary's desk, they answer that phone right from home. We've tested that this week, and it has worked. Now the number we can do that on. So we will be back at work tomorrow as an entire staff to see who we can do remotely. Again, we want to have some people working out of the building in case something happens and there's an infection or something that has to, and we have to send some people home to quarantine, that we'll have some people to bring back in and to be able to work so you don't shut down the department again. And I was going to say this at the end in the comments, we definitely want to try to keep whatever is going to keep it going. So that's why we're looking at all aspects to do it. We'll continue that meeting we had Monday. The department's coming back with their list. So there's lots of capability we have, even answering, again, our phones here from a home setting, getting into the computer and doing work on the city computer for our system, with the ability to have the security so that our security isn't breached by us doing it. The big worry about if you do from home, the breaching of security and then putting down our system, then we're really shut down. So we have to make sure doing that we still have our security. And so far that's successful, and we're moving forward on that. So we will be meeting the rest of the week, setting up the different scenarios, who needs to be here, who can work remotely, what rotations of people do we have in case somebody has to be quarantined or a group of people in the department be quarantined. So all those are really ramping up. They began last week because we knew it was going to happen, but we're ramping those up and going to put that into effect. Probably some of the things this week, we've already tested some of them, so we'll probably be putting some of that into effect.
Mr. Licorice, this is something that we never had to deal before. Perhaps it's a good idea to review our sick leave policy and see what improvements we need to make in case we have any employees that getting sick over that.
There is, and the federal government will help us. I think April 2nd, they're putting in I don't know what to call it, the Corona extra sick leave for employees. So, but we'll be able to work with that and help with that. When that comes in, we could do it anyway. We don't have to have the federal government to put something in to do that with, but we want to make sure, again, every employee is impacted as less as possible by this. So we're already looking at those type of situations and that type of leave, and making sure that our employees, don't lose in this situation where they're working so hard to keep things going under these situations.
Yeah. Also like everybody to know that the federal and state government are doing a good job keeping us informed. And Mr. Licorice and I were constantly on the conference calls with the Governor DeSantis and his team, the Florida League of Cities, the CDC, the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention. Also the White House, we have conference calls as well, so they're keeping us informed besides what we see on the news, because a lot of times the news are not 100%. So by getting that information directly for them, I think it's very, very helpful. And in closing, I'd like to take a moment and express my appreciation to Mr. Licouris for his leadership, and also our city employees that are doing an excellent job. And especially I want to thank our employees, our frontliners, the police, the public works, the fire department, everybody that is working out in the field and exposed to the virus. So I want to thank everybody for doing that. Commissioner Donovan, do you have any comments?
Yeah, so we're on commission comments now?
Yeah.
Correct? Okay, because I think the last item just kind of blended. Real quick, just so we have consensus, I just wanted to clarify, we are going to forego the ceremonial hearing at our next meeting, so the new board will just hit the ground running, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
That's what it was the desire of the two commissioners.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we were on the same page.
But we're still going to have a regular meeting, though.
Yep. Like everybody up here, I just want to make sure that we're doing everything possible, and it keeps me up at night just wondering what we can do more. And I think kind of the common theme when I was thinking about it was just getting creative with our budget. So I'm going to read from an email I sent the board yesterday, just in case you didn't have a chance to see it. I believe that we should direct the city manager to look at non-essential budgeted items and consider if the unspent money could be better used in response to this emergency. For example, the unspent money budgeted for local business grants, such as our facade grant, may be better used if we pooled it all together and developed our own grant program for businesses affected by coronavirus that are continuing to pay employees or run their business. That is just my own example of what would be possible, but regardless of your thoughts on that specific idea, I think it would be wise to look at what money we have available to better assist our community in relation to emergency response when it comes to non-essential items that have been budgeted, but we have not spent any money on yet. So the city manager would need to bring any budget changes he finds prudent back to the board for approval. But by allowing our staff to check and see if any budget changes would help our response, we can ensure that we're doing as much as we possibly can. So pretty much what I want to do now is just see if I can get the board consensus on directing the city manager to look at non-essential budgeted items that are coming up within the next couple months or that are available, and consider if the unspent money could be better used to help our local businesses or respond to this emergency. So again, I basically just want to direct him to look at our budget, see what unspent money we have, and if it could be better used and more appropriately used to help our local businesses or local economy, or just respond to the emergency in general. And if he finds anything, he'll bring it back to us for approval and he'll let us know. But basically all I'm asking for right now is that we direct him to look at our budget, see if we can do anything smarter.
I think it's always a great idea for the city manager to bring us his recommendations regardless if it's tough times or not. Perhaps now it's more appropriate than ever. But let's not rush on it and disconnect all the programs that we have placed already. Let's look and see what recommendations that Mr. Licouris will come up. That's my opinion, and then we just look at it and evaluate each one of those.
Yeah, I'm not pitching any specific idea or budgetary change. I just want to allow him to look at it, bring back to us anything that might make sense. And that's just what I thought of, is that I think, for facade grants and stuff, I don't see
And
anybody.
another thing I like to remind to everyone, we have a very healthy reserve. If we ever had to, this is a difficult times now. And let's look and see all the recommendations that they will come. And I don't have a problem if we're going to use our reserves because they are an emergency fund. So let's look at all that, or look at all the options, and then we'll decide.
So do you support our city manager looking into it?
Of course we do.
Okay.
Yeah, but I just don't want to disconnect any or discontinue.
Yep, he'll
any
bring
of the-
it back to
any
us.
programs that we already have in place.
Sure.
Yeah. But everything is on the table for discussion as far as I'm concerned.
Okay.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'm okay with looking into some funds. I don't want to, I would much rather utilize the state and federal funding if it's available for some stimulus to these local businesses. So I would definitely not want to jump out too far in front of ourselves in terms of utilizing our money for local business stimulus, as much as I think it's important, when we could use some state or federal funds. But I'm okay with an exploratory look. I do think that unless the city manager and staff can come up with a significant enough number, it's going to be hard to set the criteria that we always talk about regarding like who's eligible. So, that would just be something that I would mention that before I would commit to the utilization of funds, although I'm okay with identifying some, I would want to have a better idea on how we would create the eligibility of applicants and, how the funds would be distributed. But I'm okay with, possibly coming up with some avenues to consider the utilization of some of the funds that are already budgeted for other things.
Sure.
Commissioner Carr?
Yeah, Commissioner Donovan, thank you for bringing this up. I think it's a great idea to have the city manager look at some creative options. I think it's also a good idea to remind our business owners that there are some state opportunities as well through some grants and loans. I'm not sure if the zero interest loans are still available, but I know that was at one point, and it's going to be good to be able to see what comes out in addition to this as well, because I'd imagine the state's going to be adjusting their budget too to combat some of these issues that were brought up. So thank you for bringing this up as a topic.
Thank you, yeah. My only other comment is on attendance. Again, I think we got bigger fish to fry right now, but definitely in the future, once our board gets up and running, I'll put together an item we can decide on. Maybe if there's better methods to excuse or unexcuse attendance, that kind of stuff.
Talking about the BOC members?
Yep.
Okay.
Mayor.
Yes.
So I can sit down with this bad food. Can I make just the
please.
short city manager comments in the comment section?
Well, I believe we finished with discussion they had with the future commission meetings. I don't think we
I
have
thought you
a-
went to board
we all
comments. I
done?
thought you went to board comments.
Go ahead. You have any comments that you want to make?
I just want to say, obviously, someone who's been around public safety and emergencies and crises, this does have some twist to it from other ones. But again, we all train from everything from terrorist attacks to everything. So I can assure you in the public, and we have got the word back from the public, they have great trust all throughout the organization from the people working in the streets, that they have confidence. So we've got a lot of things to do, a lot of work, but I want the public to especially know, you as the commission and the public, because I know you have the same sentiments that I do, and those same sentiments are shared by the employees all through the lines. We want to do everything we can to assist our citizens during these times, and any methods from our workers in the field, from us as administrators, for looking at grants, for helping them fill things out, for dealing if it gets to a situation where it's a stay at home and some regulations. I got an email about getting some businesses to their business to be able to bring some home, do online. Anything we can think of or anything we can do from bottom to top of this organization, besides the normal public safety and keeping everybody safe stuff, all of us will be working to ease as much as possible the effect of this on all our community. And we want to give you that commitment universally from every department head to everybody that's employed in the city. That is our goal, and that's what we're going to put forward for as long as we're in this situation.
Thank you. Chief?
Mayor, thank you.
Thank you. City Attorney?
No comment, thank you.
Ms. Jacobs?
No comment, thank you.
Commissioner Carr?
Thanks, Mayor. I would like to say thank you to the residents of Tarpon Springs for re-electing me for another 3 years. Proud and excited to represent all the residents that call Tarpon Springs home and the business owners here as well. I grew up in Tarpon Springs, and I'm proud to call Tarpon Springs home for many, many more years. Excited to sit with you all additionally for another couple more years at least. And really looking forward to getting back to work, although I never stop working. So one thing too I want to highlight is it was nice to see that the state was able to include the dredge turn basin in the budget this year of $800,000+. That's a great win, I believe, for Tarpon Springs. I know some things can change with the coronavirus from a budgeting standpoint with the state, but I think that's something that we should all be excited about and something to stand on and really be proud about that. And then third, I do want to say thank you to Mark LaCourse, our city manager. I think you've handled this situation with the coronavirus so far very well from a communication standpoint to myself and the other commissioners and mayor. I do want to say thank you to our public service staff as well, from the police department and the fire department. From a communication standpoint, it's been excellent. And I know there's a lot of things going on within the city from the city staff standpoint. So we all appreciate, as residents and as a board member, really appreciate all the additional work that's going in here. I know it's an unusual time, something that we've never dealt with in this type of circumstance. So thank you for your precautions. Thank you for doing what you can and in all aspects to keep the city going and keeping projects going as well. So I wish everyone a safe next few weeks before we meet next, and hopefully we'll see this coronavirus subside sooner than later.
Vice Mayor Terrapini.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to offer my congratulations to Commissioner Vaticiotis and also Commissioner Carr on their campaign re-election or elections and re-elections. I think we covered a lot tonight as a Board of Commissioners regarding the necessary steps that we have to take as a community and how we conduct business. I definitely want to offer my appreciation to Mark and all of our staff for staying open for business. I think it's important that we be Tarpon strong and display that not only through our actions as a board, but also the employees and all of our essential staff and keeping Tarpon open for business as much as we can. I want to encourage everybody to be safe and try and do as much of the social distancing as possible and try and keep others safe around you. As we know, some of the one of the things that's problematic about the virus is that in some cases you don't have symptoms. So just because you think you're safe, you may not be safe. So just try and be as safe as you can. Only go out when you need to. Get the essentials when you can. And hopefully we can try and flatten the curve a little bit. So thank you to all involved in trying to make Tarpon a better place and keeping us safe.
Commissioner Donovan.
I'm good. No more
Good?
comments from me.
Okay.
Yep.
I also like to congratulate Commissioner Carr for his election, and also Commissioner-elect Vaticiotis for being unopposed, and I'm looking forward to serve with you, both of you, here in and to better serve the people of Tarpon Springs. But as announced at the last meeting that the House Bill 3121 was approved for $500,000 for the state funding for the Anclo River extended turning basin. And then after, when I was up in Tallahassee, I talked to Representative Sproles, and he says to me, he says, don't worry, I'll get you the rest of the money before it's over with. So I'm very, very grateful for him for doing that. And today we have a memo from Mr. LaCourse that he did exactly what he promised. So we, on the budget now, is $812,000. We just hope the governor will sign it and will approve it. But the House Bill 3119 for projects related to the sea level rise, including the flooding at the sponge ducts, was not approved. But we'll continue to work with representatives in Tallahassee and make sure that we have funding for the next cycle. And tonight, I am looking for the consensus from the board that I'd like to be representing the board and lobby to the representatives up in Tallahassee to make sure that we get the funding that we need for the projects relating to the sea level rise. And I'm planning to travel into Tallahassee again. It works when you go there and you talk to them.
Yeah, sounds great to me.
We okay with that?
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Okay.
Yeah, and thank you for doing that. I don't think we addressed it at the last meeting, but thank you for traveling to Tallahassee when you were there to
My
visit.
pleasure doing that, thank you.
I think it's
Yeah.
great that you should be recognized, and thank you for taking that time to do that.
Okay, and well, that concludes the regular session meeting, and it's adjourned at 8:53 p.m. And good night, everyone, and be safe.